friends and family. So, Dead on Arrival, DOA, that basically means these games released and very quickly afterwards became either nearly unplayable, mostly unplayable, production stopped, or, you know, like there's 0 players playing a lot of these. So, yeah, kind of a tragic video, but I'm not going to be toxic. These are actually 5 games that I actually played that I really wanted to keep the hype alive for. In fact, a lot of my titles had the word hype in it for these games, and I had fun. I think a lot of you guys did have fun. You were fans of these games, but for one reason or another, they just couldn't stay alive. They died very quickly. Maybe the industry is moving in one direction, maybe they didn't advertise, etc. Lots of different reasons and such. We'll cover that and review these games, but hey, these are the ones that are actually worth shouting out, because there's thousands of games that release all the time, even specifically free to play, you know, games as a service. No, if you distill it, still, there's so many just trash games. But these are 5 that were at least worth the while. They just didn't last a while. Alright guys, so the first game that I'm going to be mentioning here is the brand newest game, and that's going to be Sector's Edge. I just recently covered this, and I mean, I had fun, yeah, that's true, but I still didn't actually meet many players, even in like the first days that the game was out. So this one, it went pretty quiet. The release was really snuffed out by nothing else like it. To be honest, it's a unique game. I mean, there's other voxel, you know, FPS games, my favorite being Block and Load, and the upcoming MMO Starbase looks freaking crazy, but it just seems like, okay, in general, FPS require a lot of what I would say publishing power, like advertisements or tournaments and things like that, to get people really into the game and hooked into it, because we all kind of have our established FPSs. However, then additionally, the layer of being a voxel destruction FPS, which tends to be kind of boring looking, lack a little bit of character, though Block and Load solved that issue. But performance, you know, in these games are never really that big. So that was the gimmick, is that this was going to be Call of Duty with voxels. It was going to be micro voxels, so there's going to be micro destruction involved. It was supposed to be really performant, really tight aiming, but in the end, it was just kind of boring, you know, graphically boring, lacked character, as well as in terms of like what you can actually do, the guns that you could use, pretty straightforward, pretty standard stuff. In the game modes, there wasn't really many game modes. The maps, just the generic maps that the game came with that you could queue up for, also very boring. But the initial idea was so cool, and that's how I heard about this game. I was hyped up on the Reddit circle jerk for these kind of titles. There's always like this indie game coming out, like, oh man, I'm doing this new FPS with this new gimmick, and I always get hooked on it because I love FPSs, and then specifically also I do love voxel destruction, sci-fi type of shooters. I'm like, oh man, is this going to be voxel, Minecraft, Halo, Call of Duty, what's up? Nah, I don't know. In the end, you can just tell it was designed by a small team, and its ambitions really stopped at the micro voxel destruction, which in the end, I don't know, was actually kind of more annoying than anything. So I was really excited. I had fun for the moments that I played it, and I think a lot of people did too. You were hyped, you were excited, you got in the game, and then it died, basically. So you play it once, and you're done, and you really can't have that in a game that's designed to be a team-based shooter. It's not 1v1, it's supposed to be kind of a competitive team-based game that has no competitions and all just has nobody even casually playing it. So this would have been better done if it was more crunker styled, and if it had like more mini games and just more of a really ridiculous casual setting. If the developer wasn't ready to push the esports scene, which this game almost seems graphically and mechanically geared towards. So a little bit of a misstep that destroyed a game and continues to destroy a genre that I wish would come back. Please bring back Block and Load. Oh my god. Alright, next up we have a game that was created by a small team of 10 people, and you could clearly tell it's a game called Overstep. Now, immediately, I'm going to tell you kind of the same case for basically every FPS ever. This game tried to be competitive or had the appearance of competition, and they did not support their esports scene. They are not creating a game that is quite fully capable of the skill ceiling of a sport, and just overall, it's just, again, the publishing. So yeah, the developer and the publisher are the same. GameCan, the developer team of 10 people, you probably should have had some community managers, probably should have had some people setting up the sport, you know, grassrooted up, especially in today's age, you know, this year where the LANs aren't really a thing. It probably would have been a good time for some new games to come on and really sport it up. Overstep looked really cool. Again, I'm saying sport a lot because they literally say that in their Steam tag, a future team sport. So yeah, I'm gonna say it over and over. Team sport, you gotta make it happen. You gotta publish it, you gotta advertise for it, you gotta do it. The game is early access, technically, but it has 0 players anytime I've ever tried to play it, basically, other than day 1. And yeah, anyway, so it's a parkour, grinding, rail, kind of ridiculous, over the top, I guess momentum, movement, shooter, whatever you want to call it, kind of arena shootery. And that's kind of also a problem. Now, I actually, even though I never liked the design of robots, I like the design of the robots. I kind of like the playground, sort of like early access look to everything. I mean, a lot of people love Crunker. So this game totally had potential, especially if you made it like a browser game, kind of like Crunker, and then, you know, made it a performance sport game on Steam. In the end, people liked this game. It was interesting. I liked it. I hyped it the fuck up. But it just kind of wasn't all the way there. Like, you know, it was a little sticky. You know, where the guns really as creative as they could have been was the graphics as wow and cool, or maybe even as clean. I think it is actually pretty clean, but did it really appeal to the people it needed to appeal to? Again, a lot of games have coming out that really have this clean kind of, you know, clayish art style, like Diabolical, arena shooters, you know, Reflex Arena. But in the end, God, these games are just not in vogue. Like, people look at it and like, oh, that's a sweaty try-hard game. There is no potential for casual, cute fun, which this game totally could have had as well. It's just small team and apparently a small ambition. I think you know, you really should have put your money where your mouth is. You know, promoted this game as a sport. It could have been fun casually. I really think so, especially with the whole grinding gimmick, whatever. But no, this game really should have been pushed as an esport, and it just wasn't. And that's simply it. Games, you know, it doesn't matter how cool, awesome your gimmick is if no one knows about it. You know, you have to advertise, you got to push it out, and especially if you want a sport. Come on, do I have to say it over and over again? It's obvious, but I guess to developers who just, you know, they just want to make a cool little game with some cool little mechanics, they don't really see you know, all the things that you got to do to make a community come to life, which obviously I do as a YouTuber, but, you know, it is what it is, and it's a tragedy. Next up, we have a game that, you know, I actually debated, should it be on the list, should it not be on the list, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it up here, and that's going to be a game called Fantasy Strike. So Fantasy Strike was touted by a lot of fighting game YouTubers in the fighting game community as being sort of the solution to casual gamers. So the gimmick here is that Fantasy Strike, it looks very standard, and it is. It is a standard fighter, but you press abilities and you have cooldowns, or you don't really have ridiculous button inputs for this title. So, you know, you're not going to be doing like Shoryukens or like quarter circle forward punches to do Hadokens, things like that. You're not going to be inputting all of these different combos or memorizing those exactly. It's more like a MOBA, or it's very MOBA inspired. So you just have some abilities, every character has their gimmicks, and everything is very distilled. So you're going to have like less options, and supposedly the advertisements and what everyone would say is the hope was that it would be easy to get into and yet difficult to master. It'd still have a high skill ceiling, but when I played, even though I'm not a fighting game player exactly, yeah, my gameplay is garbage, whatever, but still, I could immediately tell that, I don't know, this isn't really Soul Calibur, this isn't even like a For Honor, which was, you know, pretty low skill ceiling, this isn't, definitely not, it's not Street Fighter, which again has some, it's not an anime fighter. Like, there's so many fighting games that just really, really ramp it up, especially like Smash Bros, and oh man, so Fantasy Strike, yeah, I don't know, it just kind of seems like a fighting game for people who are brand new to fighting games, and at that point, are they even, you know, do they want to play this game? Like, it's weird, but I don't really believe just because a game is easier to learn or easier to master that new players should exactly, you know, just jump into it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting somebody new to play the hardcore rating of MMOs, or you know, new players can play arena shooters or RTSs or lots of different games. New players all the time jump into complicated fighting games like Tekken. It's fine, and even Smash Bros. There's a way to make casual and competitive gameplay fun, and also design the game in such a way that you kind of organically learn through the different matches. So Fantasy Strike was in a way kind of a flawed concept, a little bit. I actually have hope for this concept to work from League of Legends developers Riot Games. Basically what I'm saying is making a fighting game for babies is the wrong approach. The mechanics that they have are cool ideas, such as removing the mechanical inputs to actually use abilities, and then actually focusing on maybe like, I would say higher level thinking, more like tactics, and maybe adding in some weird mutators of some kind. Like, you can have more ridiculous abilities whenever they're not tied to the literal mechanics of you physically pushing buttons, or at least that's the dream, that's the hope, and that's what actually happens inside of hero shooters, and it's what happens happens actually inside of MOBAs, where even to where the abilities and their ridiculousness can even tie into the mechanics. I mean, have you played Tracer? Have you played Yasuo? And yeah, many other games. So it's possible that this could have really kind of helped with expression into the skill ceiling, bringing like low-level players into a high-level environment. But it really just feels like a fighting game with training wheels. And nothing wrong with that. Actually, it could have been really a fun game, but as a free-to-play, there's also one detrimental fault to it, and that is the fact that you can't actually play like side-by-side on the couch with someone unless you buy the game, which is weird because it's fully online. You can play the different characters and stuff and things, but no, if you want to play it LAN or just, have a friend come over and jam, no man, you can't do that. Coming in at number 2, and so highly because I'm very biased toward asymmetrical multiplayer games, but we actually have a really completely casual game that I think should have went into a ridiculous direction of complete casuality. That's going to be Pandemic Express. Now, I played this game, I did a couple videos highlighting it because I fucking love games where you play as the monster, but I got to admit that in this game, as hype as it is that you're running through cities, the map is vast, you're moving so fast, and there's so much that could go down with a little kind of mind games chasing down the players as they're trying to actually get to safety. It was still kind of boring. It definitely felt way more fun to be a human. It definitely felt way more fun to actually, you're kind of in agency. You're kind of making the decisions of, okay, I'm going to go jump on top of this building, or I'm going to run through the building, or I'm going to run through the trees. I'm going to, hop on the islands or whatever. I'm going to take the jump pad. I'm going to jump on the train. You're the one kind of making the decisions of where to go. The zombies kind of just chase. If you never really liked playing tag when you're it or something like that, yeah, it kind of feels like that. There wasn't as much creativity as being the zombie. Now, there are abilities and things like that, but it really needed to be amped up. The weapons needed to be goofier. The maps needed to be goofier, which they kind of were. I mean, you can run on the wires. You can literally parkour through buildings and stuff like that, but I just needed a little bit more, which, you can obviously tell that this is it's going to be a niche game. It's actually kind of derived from a mod, I believe. It looks like it's going to be a small player-based type of game, just tight-knit and beloved, but in the end, actually, a lot of people dropped it because it was really too janky. It was too awkward, very unbalanced in many ways, and it just kind of had a lot of unfun for a game that should have been just ridiculous, hype, and stupid. I mean, we should have had punch guns and homing fucking rockets. I don't know. Maybe zombies should have had more ridiculous abilities, or maybe even mutations of some kind. It just should have been just a little bit extra, because that seemed to be the gimmick of the game, is that, okay, this is infection, but extra as fuck. But it kind of wasn't at the same time. It was, again, just a half measure, half step, really just almost there, almost touching greatness, which a lot of asymmetrical multiplayer games right now are so popular. I know you guys love Left 4 Dead, probably so hyped for Back 4 Blood, which is basically Left 4 Dead 3. We all know Evolve, and, that had a niche player base and died eventually, so... but Dead by Daylight is working out, and many others have come and gone that really actually had some virality to them, and then now they just have a sticking player base, like Spy Party. It's totally cool to be niche, it's totally cool to know your audience, but man, does it suck when it dies on arrival, when the gimmick is so cool. Like all these games on this list, but fuck, man, I really wanted this game to work out. In the end, though, maybe it could come back, some big update or Pandemic Express version 2.0. I really think this idea could work. Just a hype as fuck infection game, maybe with custom maps, things like that. But in the end, most people are going to play Roblox Infection. They're going to play it in Halo. They're going to play it in Minecraft. They're going to play it in mini games, because that's really, it seems, where this sort of style of gameplay deserves to be, until someone really makes a full-fledged game out of it. But here, it just kind of looks like somebody kind of just remade a minigame, and that's kind of a tragedy. And finally, for Dead on Arrival, which is one that I actually can't see the player numbers for, so I actually had to use Google Analytics and, do a little bit of sleuthing on the internet, so I can't give you direct numbers, but I'm pretty sure Hyperscape's Dead on Arrival. Can we all agree that it's Dead on Arrival? For a AAA release that just came out, that's supposed to be a big team, or I say big team, but big team battles like 16 players or more, you need a big player base? This is fucking Battle Royale, dude! You need a lot more players than that. So this is a lot of players need to play this game to even play casually, then to play competitively, because this is totally a competitive battle royale that has no option for casual play. This is hey, we want to make an Unreal Tournament kind of battle royale set in a cityscape. It's going to be hype as fuck. Dude, this game, it is, and it was cool to watch for a little bit, but it's a little noisy. You know, the weapons have some interesting gimmicks. I thought there was a lot of solutions here to the Battle Royale formulas, but then again, there's been some Battle Royales that had, you know, like Ring of Elysium, I thought had some really cool ideas too, but that doesn't save all these. It's just, oh man. Where sometimes you make a game and it's in a niche and then it still doesn't even stick to that niche like most of this list. Hyperscape is a game that should have been viral, it should have been big, it was AAA, huge production, and it should have been like, you know, right there with Apex now and Fortnite and PUBG. You know, they definitely tried to aim for that, but in the end they failed. I guess they didn't do tournaments fast enough, they didn't have all the features fast enough, and in the end it kind of just was a lot. I mean, even right now, a lot of people don't play Fortnite because the building is kind of sweaty. It's a lot. But it's at the same time, it's still a silly, you know, stupid game. But a lot of people love the balance of Apex, where it's just the right level of sweaty, the ebb and flow, the timing. It's not just constantly ridiculous, or it's not constantly too slow like in PUBG, even though that game does fairly well. This Hyperscape was just really just nerve-wracking and just a little much. Again, any game that resembles a movement shooter really doesn't do that well, because when people see it, they, you know, and they watch the videos and the streams, it just looks like stressful. And that's funny because battle royales are like the most popular genre right now, but frankly, battle royales have that perfect timing of like, okay, everything's really chill and then things get really hectic, even in games like Apex. And then when they are hectic, it's really fun to watch, but you kind of have some cooldown periods and it ramps up, you know, from number 99 to, you know, the top 10, top 5, top 2. There's a really fun ebb and flow to the gameplay loop, but Hyperscape was just basically an arena shooter is on all the time, and you're supposed to run around the map, collect things and stuff like that, but when you have those speed mechanics, movement mechanics, and that ridiculous amount of gameplay set inside of a title like this, with, you know, the guns have such, you know, aim requirements. Same thing with Spellbreak, actually, which just released, but that game will probably make next year's Dead on Arrival, but Hyperscape really, for what it was, should have been much bigger and better, and very quickly people are like, nah, I mean, basically we want to play Apex, so shut up, Ubisoft. And plus also, nobody likes Ubisoft Launcher. I've had multiple accounts hacked on Ubisoft. I can't play For Honor anymore. What the fuck? Anyways, so yeah, I don't know, that's my thoughts and feelings on Hyperscape. I thought it was a really cool idea. Oh my god, I gushed about this game, but when you actually see it in practice and you see this, you know, just the stress that this game kind of involves, I don't know. If I'm gonna play a game like that, I guess I'll play one where I shoot, you know, fireballs and lightning tornadoes. I'll play Spellbreak, but Hyperscape was just a bit sweaty without actually, you know, supporting its sport. Oh, is this another one? Yeah, there's another one. Support your fucking sports, boys. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. These are the Dead or Arrival free-to-play games of 2020 that I felt like talking about. These are games that I checked out, did videos on, that I was hyped for, and then pretty instantaneously I could tell that there's some fundamental issues with how the game is actually played on a day-to-day basis, which you need players to keep coming back to if you're going to have a games as a service. You can't run the service if nobody's, you know, paying and playing, you know, over days and times and getting their friends to play. It just sucks. So yeah, these games died pretty quickly. I think maybe we should have all seen it coming, but we always hope, you know, we always hope that these games that have these experimental concepts, or, you know, a competitor comes into a scene that's overcrowded and, you know, tries to do some new ideas and experiments, but nah, in the end, they just didn't hit their mark. And in today's age where there's a million games and there is such a requirement to really grind out and consistently play specific games, you know, to play with your friends and, you know, for social media purposes and for the sport purposes, it's harder than ever, I think, to break ground now in terms of doing something new and exciting for other players, but then also continuing to do that every single day. Yeah, I think a lot of developers just have an idea and then they put it on some dice, they roll the dice, and they just kind of hope for the best instead of managing, you know, properly their social media, their publications, you know, doing sports, doing events, planning updates for seasons and things like that. I think a lot of developers, especially indie devs, which most of the games on this list were indie, or they were just obviously Hail Marys. You know, I just think that they kind of did a cost, you know, ratio thing where they're like, we'll do the bare minimum and see what happens. But I don't know if games can be made like that anymore. I mean, if you just want to try to get lucky, sure, but no, don't do that. I don't think any you know, seasoned developer will tell you that anymore. You can't just try to make the best game that you can make with the littlest amount of money anymore. I think you got to really push hard when it comes to advertising, making connections, and creating ideas that an entire community can live and thrive on for days and days, weeks and months and seasons as you layer onto it. So it's not just about making a cool idea and throwing it out there the best you can. You gotta go above and beyond. You gotta do more. I mean, if you want to compete with the big boys, you gotta do more. So I don't know, do I need to make like a publishing company or something? I mean, I barely know what the fuck I'm talking about. All I know is that there's a problem with it, and each of these games, basically that was the main issue. I mean, if your game is dead on arrival, essentially nobody knows what you're doing, what your plans are for the future, or like that your game even exists. So that's immediately the issue. That should be pretty obvious. And apparently I'm like the only one who's ever calling that shit out. So anyways, these were cool ideas. Yeah, some of them were pretty cool games overall. But that was it. So outro's long enough. That's pretty much it. 20 minutes in. I guess I just want to say I hope you had fun. Much love, friends and family. Thanks for peeling eyeballs on the Patreon, like, subscribe, all the cool YouTube stuff. Keep the hype alive, and I will see you again next time.